Genesis 1 and the Dawn of Creation, a journey through ancient narratives. A world of competing narratives. In the ancient world, stories of creation shaped the worldview of civilizations. In Egypt, priests chanted about the rise of Atum from the chaotic waters of Nun, speaking gods into existence and setting the cosmos into a perpetual struggle between Ma'at, order, and Isfet, chaos. In Babylon, the Enuma Elish recounted how Marduk triumphed over the sea goddess Tiamat, fashioning the heavens and the earth from her defeated body. Yet into this world of myths and divine struggles came an entirely different story. One so radical, so different, that it not only challenged the theological assumptions of its time, but redefined humanity's place in creation. This story is found in Genesis 1, the first chapter of the Hebrew Scriptures. Unlike the myths of Egypt and Babylon, Genesis 1 presents a God who does not battle for supremacy, does not emerge from chaos, and does not need other deities to assist him. Instead, this God is supreme, speaking the universe into being with effortless power, creating with order, intention, and purpose.
The Egyptian scribe's dilemma. Thebes, Egypt, 1300 BCE. Amonhotep, a royal scribe, carefully copied down the sacred hymns dedicated to Amun-Ra, the sun god. He had heard these stories since childhood. The world emerged from the swirling waters of Nun, and the gods themselves were born from this chaos. Each morning, Ra battled the serpent Apophis to bring back the light, ensuring that existence itself did not collapse into darkness. But something troubled Amonhotep.
If the gods themselves were birthed from chaos, who ruled over none? If balance was required between chaos and order, why did the struggle never end? One day, he encountered a foreign merchant named Ezra, a Hebrew living among the Israelites who worked in Egypt. Seeing Amenhotep's troubled expression, Ezra unrolled a scroll written in a strange script and began to read in the Egyptian tongue.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. For the first time, Amenhotep heard a creation story that did not begin with gods being born out of chaos. Instead, there was only one God, existing before time, shaping a world without struggle. In the Babylonian Enuma Elish, Marduk creates the heavens by slaying Tiamat, splitting her corpse to form the sky and earth. This divine combat reflects the Mesopotamian worldview. Creation is violent, existence is the result of conflict, and the gods themselves are bound by fate. But in Genesis 1, there is no war, no struggle, no need for conquest. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. With a single word, light emerged, not as a deity to be worshipped, but as an aspect of the created order. Unlike the Egyptian myth, where Ra's daily battle ensures the sunrise, here light is simply called into existence by the command of a sovereign creator.
Each act of creation in Genesis 1 follows the same pattern. God speaks. Creation responds. 3. God sees that it is good. The act of speech in Genesis is significant. Words in the ancient world were powerful. In Egypt, the priestly class believed that proper recitations of divine names sustained cosmic balance. Yet the Hebrew text reveals something even greater. Words do not just sustain reality, they create it. God's words bring forth land, sky, and sea. No battle, no struggle, just divine command.
Amenhotep continued to listen as Ezra read from the scroll.
Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the heavens, and every living thing that moves on the earth." This idea stunned him. In Egypt, only the pharaoh was considered to be in the image of the gods, ruling by divine right. Ordinary men and women were subjects, tools for maintaining the god-king's power. But here was something new. All people were made in the image of this God, not just kings, not just priests, but everyone, men and women alike. What did this mean? It meant that each human had intrinsic worth, divine purpose, and dignity. In contrast to the Babylonian myths where humans were created as slaves for the gods, Genesis 1 declares that humanity was designed not as mere laborers, but as stewards of creation, reflecting the character of the Creator himself. This radically different view of mankind laid the foundation for human rights and the concept of intrinsic human value. As Amenhotep pondered these things, Ezra continued reading. By the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy.
This final act of creation was not an afterthought, it was the climax. In contrast to Egyptian and Babylonian texts, where divine rest signified the establishment of temples, Genesis presents the world itself as God's temple. His rest was not due to exhaustion, but rather the completion of a perfectly ordered cosmos. To ancient minds, this was radical. The gods of Egypt and Babylon required constant appeasement. But here was a God who, having completed his perfect work, simply rested, not because he needed to, but because it was good. This also established the rhythm of Sabbath, a day set apart not for toil, but for reflection on creation and the Creator. It was a declaration of freedom, unlike Egypt, where endless labor was expected from both humans and gods alike. For Amenhotep, hearing Genesis 1 was not just about learning a new story, it was encountering a new reality. This was not just a theological debate, it was a fundamental challenge to everything he had ever known. Instead of gods who struggled and failed, there was one God, sovereign and supreme. Instead of humanity as pawns of divine rulers, every person was made in God's image. Instead of the endless battle between chaos and order, creation was declared good with an ultimate purpose. As Amenhotep rolled up the scroll, he asked Ezra a final question.
If this is true, then what must I do? Ezra smiled and responded,
Seek the one who made you.
Conclusion: why Genesis 1 still matters. Genesis 1 is not just an ancient text, it is a declaration of truth that shaped history. Against the backdrop of chaotic myths, it stands as a beacon of clarity and purpose. It reminds us that God is sovereign, beyond nature, beyond struggle. Creation is intentional, good, and filled with meaning. Humanity is uniquely made in the image of God, with dignity and purpose. Rest is built into creation itself, a sign of completion and divine order. As we read Genesis 1 today, we are invited to step out of the myths of our own time, myths of meaninglessness, struggle, and despair, and into the reality of a world spoken into being by a God who calls it good.